Welcome, boys and girls. Please have a seat, get out your agendas, and write down your homework. Your homework for today is the Plains Indians passage and questions. It's a sheet that you will be receiving later today at the end of our lesson. Once you have written in your agenda, you need to get started on your daily oral reading for day 2 and only day 2. Once you have finished that, you may drop everything and read until we are ready to review our answers together. I'm putting up the daily oral reading on the board, but you also have your own sheet that you need to follow along with on day 2 only. You have 10 minutes to get this done and get your agendas filled out while I come around and sign them. Get started. Boys and girls, I just want to clarify on number 1. It asks about contractions. Contractions are 2 words that we combine together to form 1 word. So do not, we put together to form don't, and we add our apostrophe in there. Don't is the contraction of do not. So this is asking you to identify the contraction inside the passage and take those 2 words apart and tell us what those 2 words would be if they were not a contraction. In 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Who would like to read our paragraph at the top? Jonathan?
Sarah was so hungry she made bread. Sarah was so hungry she couldn't play basketball for 2 hours. She ran and tried to cross the cookies, but grandmother had this ready to sit on the ground.
Okay. So there's 1 contraction in this paragraph. If you undo it, what does it say? So first tell me what the contraction is, and then if you undo it, what is it? Kylie?
The contraction was she.
And if we undo it,
Was what she had.
she had. Good. She had. Okay. Number 2, how many minutes are in 1 hour?
There are 60 minutes.
Good, 60 minutes in each hour. Excellent. Okay. So try to predict what Tara will do at the end. Will she A, grab 2 cookies, B, grab an apple, C, put the cookies away? A, she will grab 2 cookies. I agree with you. Why do you say it's A? What is the reason for choosing A?
I know that Ada because it says that she had to she was hungry and
So it says Tara was hungry and that she had been playing basketball for 2 hours. Good. Glad you went back and justified it with the text. Excellent job, boys and girls. Okay, now is we're going to switch gears and we're going to work on our crosswalk lesson, lesson 10. This is about reading across the subjects and context clues. We're going to start with a flip chart on context clues, and we're going to use context clues to help us answer some questions about vocabulary. Okay? So I need all eyes and ears up front. Context clues. Ruth, will you read our definition, please? Who would like to read types of context clues? So as the trial continued, the defendant's guilt became more and more obvious. With even the slightest bit of new evidence against him, there would be no chance of acquittal. What can we infer that acquittal means? What does acquittal mean? We're going to choose the synonym of the underlined vocabulary word. Using certain body language is illicit in some countries, but allowed in others. Does illicit mean A, cool, B, dumb, C, awkward, or D, forbidden? Jonathan? D, forbidden. And we can see because it's comparing 2 different ideas here. And use
Loud.
allowed. So we see, well, if it's the opposite, because but clues us in on the fact that it's opposite of the first half of the sentence. So allowed, what's the opposite of allowed? Forbidden. Okay? Since bats are nocturnal mammals, they do not sleep at night. Nocturnal means A, by night, B, defeated, C, nature, D, firm. William?
A.
A, by night. It says they do not sleep at night. It's night and day. So in paragraph 4, what does the word unexpectedly mean? Do again, without warning, before eating, not softly. Marissa? Without warning, good. Our next paragraph. Paragraph 5, what does the word assistance mean? Praise, help, favor, or honor? Trayvon? Help, good. There was help from you. Bria? Which words in paragraph 16 or 17 help the reader understand what shrill means? Bright and cheerful, deep in the ground, take another step, or sounded like a scream. So we're looking at the context, the words around our vocabulary word here. Which words around our word help us? Cam?
J.
J, sounded like a scream. Good. It's telling us what it sounded like. Excellent. Idea of reading in different subjects. That's where the context comes in. You need to know when you're reading language arts that you read a little bit differently than we read in the science textbooks, or reading art, or music. Okay? We would like to begin reading our first paragraph.
When you are reading a textbook, you will probably come across words.
Following passage. During the Revolutionary War in America, muskets were not very accurate. American and British soldiers stood in long lines and fired large numbers of lead balls at one another. Army leaders hoped that the deadly shots would make holes in the enemy line. The word musket appears in both prints. That means it will be defined in the book's glossary. For example, the entry might look like this. Musket, a heavy shoulder gun carried by foot soldiers. We'd like to continue at sometimes. So just like what I was saying earlier, sometimes a word can have more than one meaning, depending on the kind of text word is used. If you're looking at a science textbook and you're using the word conductor, it means the material that electricity flows through. But if you're talking about conductor in music, that's the person who leads the orchestra. We're going to look through at the next page, and we're going to look how the word composition is used in two different settings. One is in a science textbook, and the second is in a language arts textbook. So pay close attention to how it differs when you use the exact same word. We would like to read our first, start at igneous rocks. And now let's look at the same word composition is used in a language arts textbook. The word composition is used in both passages, but it doesn't have the same meaning in both passages. Using the context in which the word appears in each passage, you should be able to choose which of the definitions is the right one when we look at the dictionary entry below. Who would like to read our definition of composition? Science passage. So in the science passage, we see the definition 2, the makeup of a material, is the correct definition of composition. But if we look at definition 3, a writing, especially a school exercise in the form of an essay, that is the correct for our language arts definition of composition. So we're going to continue. We're going to look at a passage about the Oregon Trail. We're going to read it together out loud, and then you're going to turn and talk with a partner and answer the questions. You're just going to turn and talk with someone after a group. Who would like to read our passage out loud?
The Oregon.
What we're going to do is you're going to turn and talk with a partner and answer the question, what does the word pioneers mean in this passage, and where would you look in a textbook containing this passage to find out? So turn and talk with a partner at your group. You have 1 minute to discuss. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Who would like to answer? What does pioneers mean in this passage? What does pioneers mean in this passage, Joey?
It means the first people to settle.
Where?
In Missouri or
The Western United States? The Western United States. I gotta look at that setting, that context. Okay? And where would you look in a textbook containing this passage to find out, Evan? Where in the book? Where in your textbook? In the glossary. Excellent. Okay. We're going to continue with another passage. We're going to read the passage about clouds as a group, and then we're going to answer the 2 questions about it. We would like to begin by reading our first paragraph. William? So let's look at our question. Number 1, when water changes from a gas to a liquid, it is called A, freezing, B, condensation, C, melting, D, crystallizing. What is it called? Good, condensation. I agree with you, and I think that is the correct answer, but just for practice, let's go ahead and review how we came to that answer. Okay? So condensation, can we justify that in our text? Where do we find it? Joey?
In the first sentence of paragraph 2.
In the first sentence of paragraph 2, we see the air becomes so cool that the water vapor condenses or changes from a liquid to a gas. So by looking at that, we can eliminate A, freezing, C, melting, D, crystallizing. Good. Let's look at our second question. Cloud droplets do not fall as rain because they are too A, hard, B, large, C, small, D, sticky. C, small. I agree, but let's go back again. Let's justify our answer. Where did you find that answer?
I found it.
Good, so cloud droplets are too tiny to fall to earth. So we know right away that it's not hard or large, because those are synonyms, and sticky. It doesn't say anything in the paragraph about being sticky. It says they're too tiny, which means they are too small. Excellent job. We're going to continue by reading a passage, just like we've done earlier this week. We read it for last week too. We read a passage with 4 questions and did a 5th question with our constructive response. Let's review our constructive response graph. What is our constructive response graph? Go ahead.
Restate the question.
Restate the question. Excellent.
Answer the question.
Answer it.
Put it with text. Then you repeat it.
Good. So when you answer number 5, I want you to go back and make sure you've done your constructive response graph. You've restated the question. You didn't just start off, it said, what said. The passage said. It helps me. What helped you? The passage helped me because you need to answer that question. You need to prove it. Go back in your text, highlight, underline, circle, cross out, whatever you need to do to help you. You need to prove it with the text. You also need to proofread it and edit it. This is practice for your Georgia milestones exam. You need to do your best on there. You need to do your best now. This is your practice. It's next month. Now's the time to make sure you're keeping an eye here. You're really giving your best effort. My group, once you get your passages, I need you to meet me at the back table. Everyone else will be working independently. Make sure you put the date on. We're going to take turns to read this. Okay. So now that we've read our passage, let's go ahead and answer our comprehension question. But what we need to do is we need to go back, underline, and justify the answers, and we also need to cross out our incorrect answers and justify why those were incorrect. Okay? So let's look at the dictionary entry below. We like to read each definition. What do culture mean as used in the passage? We gotta look at the context here. A different from the beginning. Which you think the first definition? I agree with you, but let's go back and let's cross out 1, 2, and 3. Now let's look at number 2. Both the bacteria in a lab for scientific purposes. Can we talk about anything scientific in this medical? No, so we can cross that out, but we're not talking about science. So that's B. What about number 3? The beliefs and way of life for a group of people. Hi, this is Kayme Beverly, and this is my reflection on my video lesson on differentiation. So in order to differentiate for this lesson, I began by thinking about the groups of students that I have in my class and the type of lesson that I was planning. I have 7 students in my classroom that are in the gifted program and 4 students who are struggling academically,
and the rest are somewhere in between in the average range. The students are motivated by social learning and getting the chance to work with a partner or in a group. The lesson that I planned was focused on context clues, and it had a flip chart, notes pages, coached examples, and a passage. I knew that the notes pages and flip chart pages would be text heavy for some of my students who struggle, so I wanted to provide the chance for them to work with a partner during this lesson at some portion of it. The classroom is set up with the students randomly grouped, so each group has at least one student in the gifted program and one student who struggles. I knew the turn and talk activity would allow for pure learning and heterogeneous pairing, because the gifted students could work with the students who are struggling and they could work together. Also, to help the students who need direct instruction, I provided the students with a coached example of how to read a passage and answer comprehension questions. This gave me the chance to think aloud about how to answer comprehension questions directly, and to teach some important reading skills like justifying answers with text, referring back to the text, citing the text and the evidence. I continued the guided practice during small group instruction too with my group of students. After listening to my group's answers, I decided I needed to do a little bit more of a think aloud as we answer the questions so they could see and hear how to answer the comprehension questions. Other than needing more direct instruction with my small group and think alouds, I did not run into any challenges during this lesson. However, in the future, I would like to try more peer learning and more heterogeneous grouping, some jigsaw structures, something a little bit different that allows for that social learning, but also is differentiated for each group of students. I know my students are motivated by the social learning and could benefit from learning from each other. I also want to learn how to differentiate more from my middle group of students and challenge the gifted students to finish early. I feel like I've learned a lot of tools on how to differentiate for my small group of students who are struggling, like giving them extended time, peer learning, think aloud, small group instruction. However, I feel like my middle group sometimes gets lost in there. They do pretty well by themselves, but I want to figure out how to encourage them more and give them more opportunities for success. And especially I want to learn more about my gifted students. Right now I have 7 gifted students in the class, and when the students finish early, they drop everything and read after they finish their activities. But I want to work on providing some extension activities that challenge these students, because sometimes they do breeze through their assignments and they are left with a significant amount of time while I'm still working with a small group or while everyone else is finishing up their instruction. I feel like this is the biggest weakness in differentiation that I have at this point. I'm currently researching ways on how to provide enrichment and extension activities to some of the students, and talking with my mentor teacher and one of the other teachers who has their gifted endorsement. But I know that if I do not provide the students with an adequate challenge, it could result in behavior problems, and it's unfair to them. They are not being adequately challenged in the classroom. If these students continually finish early without something to do, they could start to disrupt the class, have side conversations, become disruptive because they're bored. Also, they need to be challenged by the curriculum just like the other students in the class. But this is so far my biggest challenge is differentiation, and I enjoyed this assignment. I enjoyed being able to think and plan for differentiation and how I would meet each group of my students' needs. Thank you.